Welcome to the Coffee with Closer show, where we interview real investors that are doing real deals in this current market about how they are finding, funding, and flipping the deals. We talk about what they are doing that is working and the things they did that didn't work so that you can save time and money as you become a real investor. Welcome to the Coffee with Closer show. Hey everyone, it's Zack Attack, and I'm back with another Coffee with Closers. And listen to this. Like, we talk about virtual investing, but let me tell you something. I love what my friend here is talking about when he said, what's your excuse? We were talking about this a little bit earlier. And Chris said, I live in Mexico and my main company's in the United States. And I said, well, that is the true definition of virtual investing.
Absolutely.
And he said that you tell people, well, what's your excuse? So anyways, today's a good one. I got my good friend Chris on here. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things from different marketing sources. He's got one major marketing thing that literally made me start thinking, and I know it's going to make you start thinking, but we're going to talk about how he's got his business. I mean, he really is a business visionary. He's not in the day-to-day. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, click the little bell so you can get notified every time we bring you a Coffee with Closers show, because this show is all about real investors doing real deals, running real businesses in a real market, making real money. So, Chris, I'm happy you're here, my friend.
Hey, man. Glad to hang out with you. It's going to be fun. I always love your energy. So when I get to hang out with high energy people, that's my zone, man. You and I go back and forth on the energy.
Yes, sir. Well, you know, some of it's got to do with the coffee I drink.
Yes. A few of those a day definitely help, the caffeine.
My staff says, Zach, no more coffee for you. No more coffee for you. But I like coffee black. I don't put all the, you know.
The frou-frou in it.
I like the flavor of the bean. Like, people are like, I'm like, why do you drink coffee if you're not drinking the flavor of the bean? Like, let's just put sugar and milk in a glass for you.
Yeah.
Anyways, enough about my coffee stuff. But Chris, right now you're sitting where?
Tulum, Mexico, which is about an hour and a half south of Cancun. So right on the Caribbean water.
Man, loving it. No wonder you have a tan.
That's part of it. Yep. The sun shines here just about every day. I realized over time, I don't need seasons. Some people like seasons. I'm good with blue skies and sunshine every day. If I want a season, Zach, I'll just travel to that for a few days and come back.
And then come back home. I'm the season guy. Like, I lived in California. We only had one season. I said, I want to get back home, get to the seasons. Well, I got back home, and now I'm like, man, I don't like this raininess. And I don't like So, but anyways, enough about that. Like, people are here because they want to hear your story, man. They want to know about how you're running your business, and you got a really unique spin on marketing leads that I know people really aren't doing. And I want to talk about that. But before we get to that, look, man, I like to ask this question to all the people I run into, like yourself in real estate. And it is, because you had said to me you started about 15 years ago. Well, obviously, you know, something made that happen. So, you know, not to go into all the wins and losses, but what was it 15 years ago? You woke up in the middle of the night, you made a note, you watched a video, you read a book, you had a rich uncle. What was it that made you say, I'm going to go be a crazy real estate investor?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because my story actually starts being a seminary graduate. So, Zach, I got a master's in theology. And for me, you know, my desire and passion was to work and help people, right? That's what motivated me. And when I was finishing up grad school, I'm like, I'm just not conventional. Like, I don't really see myself as a pastor of a church. You know, I don't really see myself as a missionary. And so I can remember sitting in Chick-fil-A, eating a chicken biscuit, looking up on the mural and how Kathy Truitt had built this vehicle of Chick-fil-A and was utilizing the resources to impact the world. And they were showing all the ways in which they were giving it away. And it was the very first time that thought dropped into my head. I think that God is calling me to utilize business as a vehicle to impact the world. And either you ask people for checks or you write the check yourself. one way is not wrong or the other, but it was at that point I realized I wanted to do real estate because that enabled me to write checks and to impact the world via the economic engine of our businesses.
I love that, man.
That's why. That was it.
No, that's great, because I can remember very clearly, like what you said, that moment when I was like, I got to do this. But then I remembered I was very confused at like, am I doing it just for the money? And I'll never forget, man, this was when I was in California and I was going to this church over there. It was really small, intimate type church. And I don't know how to say it, but I had a calling to go up and just be like, look, will you pray with me? And it was about this business. It was about what was it for? What I didn't want to misuse it. I didn't want to lose the opportunity. But I also knew, like, if I didn't give it up and say, like, look, use this tool, I will grind daily for you and you reward me how you see fit. Right. Yeah. And I'll never forget that day. And ever since that, I mean, it's just, like any business, you have dips, but it just constantly goes up. And I'm always doing these little things. Like, I said this to my dad the other day. I said, Dad, God gave me the gift of this mouth and the ability to train this. And I'm afraid that if I don't use him in all of that, he'll take it away from me.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I don't think you can really make sense of it without, entering the faith equation into what you're doing, because it really comes down to the question why.
Yes.
Usually behind why is usually some deep faith-based answer to that, and that's, for me, and I think it's the same for you. It's because, our perspective of the world is that people matter most.
Yeah.
If you're going to invest in anything, real estate's great. I like the money. But there's nothing more valuable, more important than investing in the lives of people, because people matter most.
Yes, I'm with you, man. I say it all the time. Like, don't get into real estate because you want to make money. Get into real estate because it'll be a tool to give you what you really want. And you are the only one that can figure that out. So I love it, man. That was great. So 15 years ago, you just said, look, this is my purpose. You had no clue where you were going to be today with like these masterminds and this business. And like, obviously, I don't know if you're like me, but every once in a while I do slow down and be like, wow, like, look at how far I've come.
Yeah, it's like watching a tree grow, It's funny when you actually stop and look back on a year and break it down. You don't feel like you've gone far until you reverse look at that thing, and it's like, my gosh, look what's happened in a year. Yeah. But you don't see it in the moment. It's
no,
always
you don't. It's like people say, well, man, I didn't even realize losing weight or gaining weight, right? And it's like, yeah, you don't realize it in the moment until you wake up one day. So, well, cool, man. I love that. I love that was the transition that happened. So look, a lot of times we talk about next is like, what kind of deals are you finding in the market and doing? But your company, you're doing like 120, 125 deals a year with your company, right?
Correct. And that's being completely out of the day-to-day.
Right.
So I'm
and
not
so
in
production. Are those
production.
Deals, let me just ask this real quick. I don't mean to cut you off, man. I just have so much I want to ask you.
I like it. Bring it.
So your operation with your team and staff and all that over in Texas, are they only focused on rehabs, or are they doing like rehabs, buy and holds, wholesale? Are they doing a little bit of everything?
Yeah, we have three primary buckets: wholesale, wholesale, and light rehab. So everything we do is run through a committee within our company that determines which of those three buckets will produce the best profit for this particular property. And so those three things we focus on as three exit strategies for us.
Okay. So most people know what wholesaling is. Most people get light rehab, but you said hoteling. I know what hoteling is. But
let's break it down.
Yeah, let's help people understand what really hoteling is.
It's a very, again, just a fancy way of saying that rather than assigning a contract, which is how you wholesale, you actually close on the property. And the reason you do that is so that you can put it on the multiple listing service. And why we say it's not a rehab is because you put it on there in the condition that you picked it up for. And the only reason you want to do that is because, in my opinion, the MLS is one of the best buyers lists out there, because you get people that are not investors that are trying to do what they do and have the knowledge they have. You get a retail person that would be happy to get 10% equity.
Well, and you can get 20, sometimes 30% more than if you went to your investor list, right?
Exactly.
That's going to be upset that you're making 10 grand on this house.
Yeah. The retail person's glad that they got it at
$10,000
under ARV,
and a lot of times they move into it.
Yeah.
And they like, hey, look, we'll live in this, we'll fix it up. So that's great. Just so that people understand, like, wholesaling, I'm just selling the paperwork. Hoteling, I'm buying it, putting it on the market to get a higher price, which helps me overcome my 2 sets of closing fees. And I'm not really doing anything to it. The light rehab is you're putting 10, 15,000 into a project and then getting retail again.
Lipstick rehab is what we call it.
Cool, man. So you guys are just dead focused on really wholesaling more than anything, huh?
Yeah, we do. I do vacation rentals down here in Mexico. So that's where I've started that piece of the passive side. And then, of course,
got anything coming up? I might need to make a trip down there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, I'm really involved in the education coaching space. So I've got the Multipliers Mastermind, which is my number one passion. And of course, we'll be talking about today what my team does as coaching around the country for investors with what we're talking about. For
a specific lead type funnel, right? Yeah, I'm excited about that, actually. I think that's going to be cool. So that's a perfect segue into my next point, which is you're probably like a lot of the entrepreneurs that I interview that are not solopreneurs anymore, you're focused on systems and processes because, like you said, you're not in the day-to-day. So yeah, they're doing 125 deals in that market, but you're not over there looking at them, like they're self-sufficient. You're saying this is where we're going with the company, and you're kind of taking that,
playing the visionary role. Right. Visionary is direction. Where do we want to go next? What do we want to tie into this business that makes sense? Right.
So let's dig in on that a little bit. So like somebody who's watching this might be brand new and, you know, that you might have made some mistakes in the beginning, not that you made a mistake, maybe learning processes, because anytime we build something and then we want to get out of it, there's always that, man, if I would have done this in the beginning, it would have been easier to get out of it, right? So let's talk about that from you as the visionary of your company, right? Like there was a starting point, you went for 2, 3, 4 years or whatever you went through, but then you had to make that transition to say, look, this is a business for me. I don't want this to be a job. I want to get out of it. What would you say in that process? What was it that you did that, looking back now, you would say, look, if I was talking to somebody brand new that had the vision to say, I'm going to build this and get out of it, what were like 2 or 3 things that you wish you would have done different when you started to be able to get out of it now?
Yeah.
Not get out of it, but like step out of the day-to-day.
I know exactly what you're saying. So yeah. The first, and I can tell you what the primary challenge is on why most people don't get there, Zach. It's the inability to give up control. We as entrepreneurs, it's like we hold onto our business so tightly, right? It becomes our identity. It's birthed. It's our baby. Yep. And to hand that baby to someone else, I see a lot of us struggle to give up that control.
Yeah, because no one can do it like you. No one can do it. Like, I might as well do it myself. I have this struggle with my management team a lot, is like, look, quit taking it back. Like, you got to let them do it and help them grow with it.
I heard John Maxwell say, if somebody can do it 80% as good as you can, delegate it.
I think I read the same thing.
And I think that that's an important piece. And so what happens in that situation is then you just don't empower your people. And if I was talking to myself years ago, I would have pushed myself to understand how to empower my people, because what control does is it diminishes. It doesn't multiply people. And so when you're coming in, always looking over people's shoulders and not really stepping back, and as they say, letting the inmates run the asylum, your team will never move into leadership. And in order to step out of the business, and here's the next point I'll make, you have to develop leaders in your organization. And so I have a leadership team of 6. They're all directors, and pretty much 95% of all decisions are made by them. Only about 5% come to me. Most of the time I don't know what's going on from a standpoint of day to day. Now, financially, you never let that go. There's certain elements that you always have your eyes on, but they are a gatekeeper for me. They realize that 95% of it, I don't need to know what happened that day that they solved that problem, if that makes sense.
No,
they're like,
perfect.
We've got to free Chris's mind up so that he can think about what we're going to do next.
Yeah, where are we going?
Where are we going?
What are we going to do when the curve
your job
hits?
comes then at that point primarily to think. And people don't realize that, and here's the other reason, you start to feel guilty about it, right? I'm not grinding. I don't have a checklist. I didn't get a contract signed today, right? I didn't go down to the title company and do the closing process. I didn't build a system. You go from working in the physical world, now you move over into the intangible. And what that means is things like culture. Culture is intangible. Vision is intangible. And it becomes really hard to feel good about yourself because you're not marking things off a checklist like you're used to. And then all of a sudden you find you love it so much and you're like, really? My job is just to think? And you're like, but they're over there like grinding and doing those things. And here's what I would tell people. You don't realize that just because you hate it doesn't mean that they don't love it and it fulfills them.
Right.
And that's what you have to realize. And I think my team would tell me the same thing. The last thing they'd want to be doing right now is being on a podcast, right? That's not their passion. That's not their gift. And so you got to let go of that guilt and realize that what you hate to do will make someone else feel important because they're great at it.
They're great at it. And it also gives them something that they're like, look, this is my contribution to this company, right? So let's go back to that. So in the beginning, you were like, hey, look, these are a few things I should have started working on sooner. Letting go of control, letting other people step in and take the reins sooner. Number 2 is empowering your team sooner.
Yes.
What was number 3?
Raising up leadership.
Raising up leadership.
Developing the leaders in your organization. Everything rises and falls on leadership, right? We know that.
Yep.
And if you don't have leaders in your company.
So for the new person, doesn't have a single employee.
Yeah.
They're a solopreneur, right? I remember very well
that
too.
Moment when it's just you.
I was grinding in my bedroom.
Company.
So right now, a new person, they don't really have leaders to grow, right? They are the leader. They don't have teams, so they can't empower teams. So for that person, when they're coming out and they're saying, look, I like what Chris is saying. Like, I want to build this team of leaders, but I don't even have a team right now. What would be we're still on this side of the question, right? We haven't gotten to what's working right now, but on this side of the question, let's still talk to that person. You know what I mean? That person that's still, maybe they're 6 months into this and they're doing some deals, but they don't have a team. What would be to say to that person so that
tell you exactly what I say to that person.
Yeah.
And that is that a good chunk of your time needs to be developing yourself as a leader. You will never lead anyone else until you learn to lead yourself. And leading yourself, man, you know this as well as Zach, is the most difficult. In all of my leadership, Chris Arnold is the most difficult person for me to lead. Without question, right? To do the things I need to do.
And you're the most critical on yourself. You're
the most critical, right?
So
when you look at the journey of leadership, right? Leadership begins with yourself. And so those are the times where if you're the solo person listening, man, are you carving out the time to read and do the podcast and put that study time in?
Yep.
One thing I tell people I wish I had done sooner is get a coach.
Yeah.
You go further and faster with a coach than you will ever go on your own. I always, at all times, have 2 to 3 people coaching me, whether that be on the fitness level, to the psychological level, to the marriage level, to the business coaching.
And you know what's so funny, Chris, is like you say that, I say that, people I interview say that. Like when I look and I put out a list of everybody I've talked to, the ones that have businesses that are making strides, giving back to the community, changing their bloodline, creating legacy wealth, doing all these great things, they all say that because we all know that. Like we only know what we know, especially when we get into this zone, right? You know what zone I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Like I'm going to do this if I have to work 24 hours a day. Well, we got to have a coach that says, whoa, man, you're not being productive. You're losing sight. You're not taking care of you. Like, slow down. Let's balance this thing. But then you talk to somebody that doesn't have all of that. And for some people, it's hard for them to see that. Like, a coach is so powerful. I'll give you what you were talking about, and I'm going to go on to this side of that question is, it's amazing how clear your vision becomes when you are systemized, working in yourself for leadership roles. I'll give you an example just to be transparent. For about 3 or 4 months before coming in the first year, I was really foggy, like really unclear. Like, there's just so much going on. I could not get focused. And then I was like, you know what? I got to go back to my roots. I got back in the gym. I started reading daily, started listening to my podcast again. And over the last month and a half, it's amazing, like, all the business that is coming my way right now. Like, my real estate business has grown. The training business has grown. My REIA has grown. Like, it's just like, wow. I was on the way into the office today. I was talking to my good buddy, the Lord. And I was like, thank you. You know what I mean? Thank you for putting me through that trial so that I knew, like, I had to rebirth myself again. And I had to get back into these things to clear my side, do what you said, work with my coach again, get on the podcast, get this working clearly to get refocused again. And I think that's a huge part of what you said there. Lead yourself first, because as a solopreneur, it's super lonely.
It is lonely. I remember that. I remember it being me showing up at 6 a.m. to pull expireds, pull for sell by owners, right? Yep. Start calling by 7:45, just that whole process. Yep. Again, I started on the retail side. Go take a listing, come back, put that listing in myself. Like, I remember those days. But what I want to remind people is, like, get everything you can out of the season you're in. Everybody's in such a rush to get to the next level without taking the time to get all the meat off the bone, all the principles that you need in season, because life is just one season after another. And everyone's like, I got to get to the next season. And I go, have you gotten everything that you need to understand? So if you're the solo person right now, what I would encourage you is, and get everything out of this time that you can. And
even
being
if it's
by
a
yourself,
bad season.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's the one you least want to rush out of. The pain makes you want to get out of it faster.
There's so much to learn there too.
Yeah, so much.
That was how I started my drive off this morning. Funny is, I was actually thanking him for putting me through that season. Right? I was like, thank you for testing me. Thank you for putting that on me to show me that I am strong enough to get through this. Right? So I was starting off with thanking him for the bad season, right? Because it brings the good season that you're like, man, look, now where am I going? But I love your point. Did you get everything out of the season you were in?
And as they say, right, the fruit is grown in the valleys, not on the mountaintops.
Yeah. All right, but man, I could talk this with you all day.
Let's move. Let's transition. Let's go.
All right, moving to the next side. So the next side is these are the things I would have done different. But now you're sitting in Mexico, you're running this business, you're doing the masterminds, you're doing podcasts, you're teaching people a new way of thinking and doing things. So obviously there's a lot that's gone right. If you was to say to me, Zach, if I look at where my business is today, these are 2 or 3 things that I know we do right every single week. And this is what I like to keep doing. Yeah.
Just from an overall business standpoint. Yep. Number 1 is making sure that we maintain a very tight culture. So, you get that right. You get the culture piece right in your organization. A lot of other things will fall into place, because the ups and downs, right? The drama, all of those type of things, in my opinion, getting culture right is the most important. And culture's top down in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
You set that culture, and then obviously it begins to cross-pollinate and so forth. But the thickest and strongest thing we have in our organization is how tight our team is. And that's virtually. We don't have a brick and mortar, Zach. People are like, can you do that virtually? Absolutely, you can. So that's one thing I feel like we've got right.
So when you say how tight and close we are, would you really kind of be leaning more into like just the trust and the bond that they share with each other?
It's the trust. It's the bond. It's what it goes into is this. Every person in our organization cares about the totality of every other person's life.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Their family, their health, everything. And when you're in a culture in which you know that every aspect of your life is cared for by your other members of your team, there's nothing off limits from that standpoint.
Yep.
That's what creates closeness, and that's what creates that sense of trust.
Yeah, I love that. Man, you got a lot of things going right, Chris.
Man, all the coaching I paid for, all the pain, all it's not, and it's nothing original, man. And you know, as I do, a lot of it goes back to just, biblical principles, man, that have just been repackaged and resold in different ways.
I say that all the time. People are like, man, I love what so-and-so said. I'm like, you need to read Philippians.
Nothing new under the sun, man.
Yeah. Oh, I love what he said over here. Oh, you need to read the book of Job. Because you're right. It all started over there. Right? Anyways, I know some people are watching this. They're like, man, what these? Yeah. Hey, it's powerful. So that is a great example of like taking it and saying, look, you're always going to start in the grind, or you can stay in the grind forever, or you can start to look at this as a business and start to figure out, how do I smooth myself out? And those are the key points. I love those key points you shared. Powering the team, leaders in your organization, leading yourself first, and then creating that culture and that trust and bond amongst your team to keep that operation running.
The last is your systems, man. I mean, we have an entire operation manual, and everything is broken down to, as my CFO says, the gnat's ass.
Wow.
And if you don't systemize your business at a level to where, again, what makes companies like Amazon great? Right?
Oh, yeah. It doesn't care. It doesn't matter who comes in or goes. Anybody plugs into the system.
Because that's what a business is. Fundamentally, it's a system. And what it is a system that runs efficiently, runs the fastest, right? Produces the most consistent result. Yep. That system is going to win. That business is going to win. So we're very system dependent as an organization. And let me say this.
Yeah.
I didn't have to build them. My
go.
Team did, because as a visionary, my strength is not systems. My strength is to find great people that can build those systems.
I love that. I'm with you on that one, man. I like systems, but one of the biggest things I learned a long time ago was when you have somebody that's been working with you, you say, look, hey, I want you to write out your daily process, right? What do you do daily? How do you do it? Boom, that goes into our SOP manual, right? Yeah. It's like, let's build it. All right, man, let's talk about this, because you wouldn't have a business if you didn't have leads. So what are your top 3 lead sources? Where are you guys getting them from right now?
So we have 4 pillars for us.
Okay.
In no particular order, but online marketing, right? That's everything from SEO, PPC, you name it.
Social.
Social.
Yep.
So we call that digital or online marketing. Direct mail.
Okay.
Wholesaling, which is a really key piece right now, particularly with the amount of new people coming in. And then lastly, which is what we're going to talk about today, which is tried and true, the thing that everyone knows about that nobody's using, and that is radio. So, man, that's so funny you bring that up, because you're right. Like, we all know it, but we don't lean into it. Right. So what made you lean into radio? I started it 9 years ago, believe it or not. And I started utilizing it on the retail side to get listings when I was more doing kind of the brokerage piece. Yeah. And then, when we launched into the investment world, I looked around and I said, who is utilizing radio to find distress and discounted properties? And what's funny is, as we coach people around the country, one of the things they'll come back when I say, what piqued your interest? They'll say, well, you asked the question, who's doing it in my market? And I sat back and I said, nobody. And what we know is there's virtually no competition on radio right now. Yep. And so why radio works so well is our primary demographic, Zach, is over the age of 50. So people are like, isn't radio like old school? And I say, absolutely. And so is your avatar or your demographic. They do not have Spotify downloaded on their phone. They do not listen to Pandora. They still listen to the radio, and they still watch TV. And in my opinion, that's why it's kind of gone untouched, is because people have confused themselves as their demographic. Zach, you're not the demographic you're going after. I'm not the demographic I'm going after. We're going after a different demographic.
Somebody that doesn't or can't do the fix-up work, that's had the property forever, there's equity in it. Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. That's super smart. And it brings me back 6 years ago, we were running radio here in my town. And we actually got some deals off of it, but we stopped for some reason. You know, and so
I don't know why, because it's been the
most that's what I'm sitting there going. I'm like,
dependable piece of lead generation I've ever had.
Why did we stop? Like, I don't even remember why we stopped. I really don't. I have no clue. Because one deal we got, I made almost 80,000 on it. Another one was a 20. I mean, it was paying for itself over and over. I don't know why we stopped.
Yeah. And it's interesting. If I look at all four of those, average profit per deal, the largest average profit per deal from those four actually comes from radio.
Really?
Isn't that interesting?
Which allows you to pay more for the lead.
Yeah. And so obviously though, the secret sauce is the discount at which we buy it at. We buy our radio like we buy our real estate at a wholesale deep discounted price. And again, if you buy a house at the right price, then everything else will fall into place behind that. You don't, you're probably going to lose money on the deal. Right. It's the same with radio. It's all in the purchase. So are you
stepping in buying bulk spots for a long time, or are you stepping in and like maybe, and we don't have to get too much into it.
I share. So
playing into the remnant world, like, hey, we got like, hey, they're running and they're like, hey, tomorrow we've got these spots open right now. We'll sell them at a discount. Are you running into the remnant world?
Yeah, it's more on the remnant side, but it's locked in from the fact that it's not, well, we're just going to play a little bit this week and so forth. So what we focus on as a whole is prime time, Monday through Friday. And we run 5 ads per day, Monday through Friday, 4 weeks out of the month. So each station we have, we're running 100 ads per month, which is great frequency. And people don't realize. You're running
prime time. So you're talking 4 to 7?
7 a to 8 p.
7 a.m. to 8 p.m. All through the day.
You can play anytime you want during that time, but that's considered prime time.
What would you say your average spend is on one market for 1 week? Let's just talk for the new person.
So let me kind of give you the range. Depends on your market. But radio is actually really affordable. So you can pick up stations starting at $1,000 to $2,000 a month. So that means that we're running 60-second spots, and those spots can be $10, $15 to $20 for a 60-second spot. That's entry level. It's crazy. This is why people stay away from radio, because they automatically assume that I got to start with a budget of $5 or $10 grand. Not true. My very first station,
that's what we were running.
Yeah, my very first station. My very first station was $1,500. Zach, I was running 100 ads on a classical station. We still have that station because it crushes it. And I was running $1,500, which meant I'm paying $15 per ad. Now, there are obviously big stations. Again, we don't go after what we call the million cum stations. Example of that would be like KISS FM. Those are massive. We like to play within the smaller to mid-sized stations. And those are definitely strong, and that's where we get great discounts.
Well, and it also goes back to your demographic thing again, right? Yeah. Like, a 65-year-old,
ain't listening to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, exactly. They're not over there listening to KISS like, I got your money.
I love that you just broke out in song. That was great.
So I get it, man. Like, it makes perfect sense. And obviously there's probably a whole system behind this. And so did you, like, at one point, did you sit back and, lay all this out and said, you know what, this is something I should probably share with people?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because let's start with ringless voicemail and text blast, right? Works, big returns. There's no question it's inexpensive. But how many people right now are fearful that it's either going to get shut down by regulation or through tech, right?
You're absolutely right.
If you've got your eggs in that basket, you could get in trouble. There's no question that direct mail is pretty much oversaturated in most markets. Now, again, if you're in a small market, you might be okay because you have little competition. In Dallas-Fort Worth in 2018, our direct mail was running a 1 to 4 return. That means if you're new, every dollar we were spending was getting $4 back, which is great. It dropped all the way to $2 in 2018, and that had only to do with the fact
that's not sustainable.
So yeah, we were sending 100,000 pieces of direct mail a month. you go from a 1 to 4 to 1 to 2 drop, that will affect your revenue.
Very much.
And so, that one of the reasons we rolled it out at this point is we know that the market and the country is hungry for something that's reliable. There's a lot of up and down. There's a lot of competition. And again, I'm in Dallas-Fort Worth. So Zach, if you do it down where you're at or anyone else around the country, it doesn't affect us.
Yeah,
right? We're in
true.
Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And that's why also we're running and limiting the amount of people that come into the program and into markets. So we don't oversaturate it like we did with direct mail and the other stuff where everybody gets on the bandwagon.
Right.
We have to preserve it.
Love it, man. Because, I'm thinking of it as you're talking, I'm thinking of it on my side also, like, Facebook's great. We get a lot of leads, but a lot of people do it. Direct mail is great. We get a lot of leads, but everybody's doing it. So it's like this idea once years ago when it was like go to off market deals to be, to eliminate your competition, direct to sellers. Well, that's almost like the MLS now, right? Because everybody's going after them. And yeah, you're right. Like radio, I'll never forget this guy that we got off the radio last time. We asked him point blank, who else are you working with? He's like, nobody. I mean, it was an $80,000 deal. And he's like, nobody, I heard you on the radio.
Exactly. Because here's the thing. All those other sources, why they're getting saturated is because they're list dependent.
And lists do this, man.
Exactly. Radio is not list dependent. So you're tapping into an audience that are not getting postcards, RVMs, and text blasts.
Right.
So that's why you go out and you're like, who am I competing against? And you get those times, like you said, where you're the only one because I heard you on the radio.
I love it, man. No, that's great, man. So, all right. So obviously you're being the visionary. Where do you see your company going over the next 12 months?
Which one?
Your real estate investing company.
Yeah. So for us, and I'm going to speak to maybe the seasoned person listen. And if you're new, I think you need to understand this, because of the increase in competition, right? I don't know if you, Zach, can remember going back. I remember even being in brokerage world 5-10 years ago, people didn't even know what wholesaling was.
I know, dude.
You could ask a real estate agent and they didn't know what wholesaling was. It was oh, that's illegal.
Well, that's like something you said earlier, co-wholesaling.
Yeah.
I don't know if you may not even know this, but we brought that strategy to the market almost 7 years ago. I own the name co-wholesaling, I own the trade.
Really? I did not know that. Yeah. So what I tell people now is the healthy model, right? Like for us, we have kind of a 3-approach model to what we do. We go direct to seller, right? Which is all the ways we talked about. We go direct to investor because not only do we want to go after the goal being the seller, we want to be the company that also provides the picks and axes to those going after the goal. During the gold rush, some people made it rich off of getting gold, but a lot more people made rich providing the ancillary support to those going after the gold.
Selling the Levi jeans.
Exactly. And that's what co-wholesaling is. And so if you're seasoned, I tell people to think about that. And then the third layer, which we didn't even touch on, is the fact that on top of all this, we're also doing retail, which means we're listing properties because when people call in, they're either going to go cash or they're going to need to list it. And we as a company are solution oriented. So whatever is best for you, we can provide as a company. You want to list it, then one of my agents will list it for you.
I love it, man. You're covering all spectrums.
You have to right now.
Right now, for sure.
Well balanced out.
So, and I got in 17 years ago, so just right before you. So we've seen this progression. We've seen when nobody wanted to buy and we were buying everything to now everybody wants to buy. And it's like, okay, now I got to start figuring out how to sell them stuff and still keep my own thing going. And it's multifaceted. That's why I love the business, man.
Yeah,
I really do. All right. So you've given a ton, Chris, a ton, man. I appreciate your transparency, your willingness to share. I really do, man. And you're like you said earlier, you're doing the podcast with Wholesaling Inc.
With Tom Kroll and Cody Hoffheim. I love those guys.
Yeah, man. I got to hang out with them down in Birmingham at a mastermind with Brian Tripp. And so Tom's a great guy, man. He's built culture like nobody's business, right?
Agreed.
I think that's amazing for him. So you tell him I said hi.
I will.
He needs to come on this show. I need to have some coffee with Tom, okay?
Right.
So you guys know where to find Chris. Look, here's the thing. I know we go through a lot. We're going to add a bunch of descriptions of this. You'll see the links you can go through. You'll see a little breakdown of the notes I made. It'll be great to just kind of recoup on that. But listen, before we got to hop here, I like to end with my hot fire questions.
Oh, goodness. Let's do it.
All right, you ready? All right, Here we go. What's your best place to vacation at?
Best place to vacation. Honestly, it's where I live, Tulum, Mexico. And I hate to say that, but it is my favorite place in the world.
Your favorite place in the world.
Nothing
wrong with that, man. That means you're living your life.
Yeah. Second would be Thailand. I really love Thailand.
It's cool, right? What was your first automobile?
It was a Jeep Cherokee, but it was old. My dad passed it down to me.
Oh yeah.
It was that, here's your 16 years old. Here's your Jeep Cherokee.
It's yours now, boy.
It's yours now. And so that was my first car.
Well, I'm sure you're going to answer this one pretty easy. What's your favorite season or holiday?
My favorite holiday is 4th of July because I like blowing crap up.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
Fireworks.
What's your best podcast that you've listened to lately, besides yours, besides mine, something that's outside of these two worlds?
Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast. It is
Andy Stanley. I don't think I've heard of him.
Leadership Podcast. He's one of my top guys I follow on leadership.
Love that. All right, cool. Thanks for sharing that. What's your favorite food, man?
Chips and salsa.
Chips and salsa. Had some last night.
But dude, you want to know what's funny, and I'll be fast on this. We don't really have Tex-Mex here in Mexico, and they don't do the chips and salsa thing. So people laugh when I go back to the U.S. I'm like going to Gloria's and On the Border and all those Mexican places and just eating chips and salsa because we don't actually really do that in Mexico.
I had a great dish last night. My kids wanted to go eat. It was called Barbora or something like that. It was like an authentic dish. I mean, it wasn't like tacos and burritos. It was just very authentic, man. It was great. All right, are you an early riser or you sleep in, man?
I'm in the middle. So I'm a guy that likes to throw down about 9 hours. So I'm in bed by 10:30, and then I wake up right around 7 o'clock.
Gotcha.
7:30, somewhere in there.
That balance, right? That balance.
Yeah, I do get my sleep, man.
That's balance. All right, what's the favorite book you've read lately?
Organizational Physics. Without question. That book rocked my world. It takes the laws of physics and talks about how they apply to business. It's kind of like the epiphany you have when you read something like Scaling Up or Traction.
You know what? I just finished Scaling Up.
Yeah. And that's a thick read.
Yeah.
It's a thick one.
Well, no, I'm not a very good reader, so I audible everything.
Yeah. I'm the same way as well. I say reading means audible for most of us.
I turn audible on 1.5 and go.
Organizational physics totally reshaped my thinking.
Love that. All right, man. Last question. What's your favorite movie of all times?
I'm a documentary guy.
Yeah.
And so my favorite documentary is Man on Wire. Not the movie.
Yeah.
The documentary.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Love that documentary.
That's deep, man. That's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Who doesn't want to pull off a fake heist, which is pretty much what that guy got away with.
Right. Hey, man, listen, you've dropped it, man. You dropped your marketing strategies. You got the radio thing dialed in. I love that. We're going to put some links in the description for you guys to keep following. I love the fact that you shared what you should have done before, different or maybe sooner when you first started your business to create this leadership mindset. Because you're thinking business, right? Like, how do I build this team now so that I can keep that culture strong, that system in tight, that trust with them moving forward. Love you sharing all that with us, man. The guy that's sitting in Mexico with his team doing 125 deals a year, can't go wrong with that, man. Love that. I agree. Can't go wrong with that. I'm sure at any time you just go hang out on the beach whenever you want, right?
I do. I definitely.
Hey, you're a visionary. You got to put yourself in the right spot to create that vision, man.
One of the reasons I did it, right?
Hey, and what's your mastermind? Just share your mastermind with people. What's the name of your mastermind again?
It's the Multipliers Mastermind. It's not a mastermind. We have to use that word because people can fathom it. It's a brotherhood. And what distinguishes us is, again, A players only. We have the very top guys in the industry. That's who we serve. Again, I feel called to lead leaders and influencers. And we are completely comprehensive, business and personal. So We go faith, family, fitness, finance, marketing, sales, operations. It's built to be a one-stop shop so that what everyone is struggling with, regardless of business or personal, we're equipped as a community and a brotherhood to be able to deal with it. And of course, we meet in Tulum, Mexico, right? I don't want to sit in a ballroom with bad carpet and crappy lighting. Put me out in the open breeze, right? Looking out over the ocean. And so that's my number one passion, is ministering to these guys. And if you know, being an entrepreneur is difficult. We isolate, it comes out sideways. We struggle with things like addiction, affairs, right? All that stuff comes out being at the top. And if you don't have a safe place to be able to talk about the difficult things, you're in trouble as a leader.
Man, I love that. You know, you said something pretty big. Our core value here is based on what we call our 5F values. And it's actually on the wall. I don't know if you can see it.
Can't see it.
It wraps around our wall here. It's on the door when you come in. It's faith. And then we move into family, freedom, fitness, and fellowship.
Yeah.
It's our 5F lifestyle. And so it's all about like, what do we build our company off of? Obviously, we start with faith, right? The faith in ourselves, the faith in our students that they can succeed. And I won't go into too much, but I like what you said there about your brotherhood is like, it's not just business. And I think some people miss that, man. They go seek just like, I got to get better at business. I got to get better at business. But you said it even here earlier too, is you got to lead yourself first, which means you got to go get better at being you. Right? Like trusting you again, loving you again, to be able to make those right decisions, to get out there and be great at business and life and parenting and friends and sons and daughters, right? So
I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, if a business fails, it's not because of a lack of strategy. It's because the leader implodes.
Yeah, I agree.
Guarantee you. It's the leader that topples. And
man, we got to get together again. I always enjoy hanging out and chatting with you, man.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, buddy. Love your energy. Enjoyed connecting you when we got to meet down in Florida. I loved our talk.
So, yeah, that was a good talk. I still remember it, man. Anyways, my friend Chris here, you guys follow him. Whatever he does, you plug in with him. He's got it figured out, man. Like anybody, you know, we're all starting somewhere. That's why we do these coffee with closers. Some of them have, you know, more seasoned, you know, business owners. Some of them have people just starting out. But at the end of the day, it's all about people doing deals and how they've built their business, what they're doing, what's working, what's not working. And we do it for you so that you can shorten your learning curve, so that you can plug into the right people. You know, you might hear Chris and be like, man, I get what he's saying. I need to follow him. You might listen to another one and be like, man, I get what Bob was saying. I need to follow him. That's the whole purpose, guys. Getting you in the right stream so that you connect, grow, and keep learning this business. Guys, I want to say thanks for having Chris on here again, and that's always a treat. You guys saw it right here. The guy's doing it right. My name's Zack Attack. Remember to subscribe and click the little bell notification on the Coffee with Closers shows. Follow our YouTube channel. Check me out on Facebook. Do all the things. Stay engaged, man, because that's how you're going to keep in the stream and you're going to keep moving forward. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.